Howdy. Good morning. It is 4:21. It's a good audience for being the day after April 20th in Amsterdam. So I am here to talk about Year in Ethereum. This is a piece that Josh Stark and I publish every year. We have like a panic attack every time it hits Thanksgiving, or at least I do, American Thanksgiving, thinking that we're going to have to write all these words over and over and nitpick every one like we do. Mostly me. I like to bike shed all of Josh Stark's words. This is like a visual tour through the year in Ethereum. And I think the overriding theme, which is why Rajiv asked me to give this talk, is that, we are at a point now where like Ethereum is really a thing, and security is not, it's not a child's play, for a nascent industry, quite to the same point that it was, 4 or 5 years ago. I never got around to doing this slide, but me, I'm at Starbloom Ventures. I have a newsletter, as Rajiv said, and I've been around Ethereum for a while. That's enough about me. So this is I'm basically just taking the images from our year in Ethereum 2021. So this is the total transaction fees that were paid over the year. It's interesting because if you think about going back to the days of, Bitcoin having the lead in this and everyone thinking that it would never get flipped, and then it's not even close anymore. And in fact, it's the gap has even widened. And then of course there's Binance and Avalanche, which are, both based on Geth. And, basically nothing else really figures in terms of fees, which of course is an imperfect metric, but is a generally directionally correct proxy metric. I think it's the best that we have. And then we add apps on Ethereum. So basically the pink, and Uniswap also flipped Bitcoin in 2021, which is kind of crazy. And you go back to this, and then you have some Bitcoin, and really it's all apps after that. And so far this year, I think the trend has even exacerbated. Bitcoin has done its sort of slow decline in fees. We're a long way from Greg Maxwell breaking out the champagne. Anyway, that was fun. Fees and revenue in 2021. This is, like most of these things, actually Josh's, I think, idea, and then I go up on stage and take credit for it and pretend that it's mine. But comparing fees and revenues, of course, again, I think just like transaction fees, it's an imperfect metric, but I think it gets the general point across, which is that, security is big business in this space now, and it's vital. Because, while we are behind on fees, if you go and look at transaction volume, you could make the case that Ethereum now moves more volume than Visa. And of course, this is, again, something that you could nitpick, but generally directionally correct in that, it is increasingly more and more of a thing, and is now an international payment rail that has scale. And then total value locked. So you can, look at this, and 153 billion at the end of 2021, which is more than Bridgewater, one of the largest hedge funds. Robinhood, 80 billion. And of course, those lines there at the bottom are some of the layer 2s and sidechains, which are coming up. So this is a different metric. This is layer 2 from L2B, the total value locked in layer 2. And it is growing, and it's, I think, pretty obvious if you're in this room that, layer 2 security and bridge security is increasingly a thing where bounties can be had, and you can make some money while making the ecosystem a lot safer. Because increasingly it's up and to the right, and I think given the news of yesterday, 2 days ago, that one of the big layer 2s is going to do a token soon, I think we're going to see that number continue to go up and to the right. So this is just looking at fees on layer 2. This is actually from February when I did this in Denver. But the long-term vision of Ethereum is that the users should be migrating to layer 2 and not to Ethereum. And so transactions will be expensive on Ethereum, but hopefully cheap on layer 2. And in fact, in the future, much of the fees should be coming from layer 2. And here you can see this is again picked on a random day in February, I believe. Yeah. So one other thing which I think was interesting, and this is again Josh Stark's idea, I had nothing to do with it, was the rise of the creator economy in 2021. And of course, a lot of it was JPEGs, sometimes overhyped, whatever you will with that, right? But I think it is true that it became an actual thing, that an alternative path for artists to monetize their work, and at a scale that is meaningful in the world. It's no longer entirely just a niche thing. And a different way of looking at that, again, all credit to Josh. I had nothing to do with this slide, let's be honest. But a lot of people really seem to like it, which was, if you look at who can make a living on crypto, we went from just people that had really mined early and had bought Bitcoin real early by, whatever means that they could possibly acquire it. And then it's grown over the years, into exchanges, into developers, and now, as of now, a lot of creators can as well. This doesn't include auditors, who certainly can make a good living on crypto for sure. So this is 1559. So after the London hard fork, this is the graph. The green is the 1559 transaction type. Blue is the legacy type. So it's interesting to see the adoption that happened very quickly and continued over 2021. I think that big spike there is probably when MetaMask started supporting it, about a month in. And this is showing that 1559 worked. The main goal was to reduce, to make it easier for UX, to make gas fees more predictable. It achieved that. You, as a user, you pretty much always pay lower gas fees. So the orange line is the fees that were paid by people using 1559, and the blue line is by people that weren't. And I know that's a little bit hard to see. So the next slide is the difference between the orange line and the blue line. And as you can see, it's clear you always will pay less gas if you are using 1559. So I think an underrated element of 1559 is that it was security, both from a perspective of hardening against some DOS issues, but also in the long term, proof of stake needs Ether to be valuable, and 1559 burns ETH, the base fee, and that is a long-term value accrual mechanism for Ethereum, and that is, something that gives more long-term and increasing security to Ethereum. Of course, it's funny, in 2021, we only saw a few dips into the negative issuance per day. We saw a lot of that earlier in the year. And of course, gas fees have been relatively low over the last month or so, and we're back into positive issuance per day. The next slide is really just how the Beacon chain launched in December of 2020. And it's funny because people don't remember now, but there were a whole lot of people that were saying it wouldn't launch on time because nobody would stake their ETH, and for a while it seemed like that might possibly be right because there was a whole time period in which you could do it, and then of course everyone did it right before the deadline, and then there was plenty of ETH stake to launch. And that number continues to go up. I think it's going to go up increasingly with the merge as we, when transaction fees through the tips get added to the amount that you can make plus MEV. I think we're going to continue to see people stake more ETH. This was a path to the merge graphic that was done by Trent Van Epps. It's maybe a little optimistic and viewed in April 21st. But we're getting close. Yeah, hopefully soon. TM. Speaking of security, client diversity is absolutely a security issue. This is about where it was back a few months ago. We've made a lot of progress right now. I believe it's clientdiversity.org tracks the numbers now. Coinbase as well as Binance and particularly Lido have moved these numbers appreciably in the right direction. Into Prism is now about 50%, which is great because we really want to avoid any client being over 2/3. And actually, the ideal is that from a security perspective, no client should be over 1/3. But it's great that we've seen measurable progress. Geth, of course, still has, as a hardened client, still has something like 90% of block producer nodes. I think that any probably core dev that has maintained a majority client would probably tell you that they would love to have better client diversity because, it's easier to sleep at night if the burden of the network isn't on your shoulders. So I think client diversity is a really important issue both for our developers and from a security perspective. I probably won't go into more of that here, but all of you probably have a decent idea of that. Elsewhere in 2021, DAO voters, became a thing, and one of that big spikes was voting on ENS, but DAOs certainly became a thing, and this is one way to track the increasing measure of DAOs. I spend all my time, well, a lot of my time still, writing, dealing with Week in Ethereum news. Of course, Andrew is the editor, and he does most of it. And mostly I come in and annoy him and harass him when he's trying to publish, and probably make the issue worse every week. But and it's crazy. There are all these DAOs out there now, and people have now using Ethereum to collaborate across the world. That it's amazing to see sort of groups come together in a native internet way that wasn't possible before Ethereum. So this was our conclusion to last year's post. In the 2020 issue, we predicted that Beacon Chain would launch in 2020, and boy, they made that close, launching in early December. This year, apparently, we predicted that we were going to turn off proof of work, and I still feel good about that, but let's cross our fingers. Let's hope it happens as soon as possible. I think we're all ready to be done with proof of work. I certainly have been ready to be done with proof of work, I think, since before the proof of work network launched. So I think Ethereum's promise has always been to move to proof of stake, and I'm excited about that, and I bet you are too. And finally, as I said, a lot of those graphic ideas were Josh's. I just come up here and take credit for them. We also had 3 great folks who helped us this year, Bruno, Miguel, and Nazim, and then a few other folks who read and provided comments or who we stole graphics from. Thank you as well to them. Superfizz, Lakshman, Liam, Danny, Tim, Donkrad, Trent, Barry, and Fabian from Snapchat. And, I guess you can't really click that link, but you can go find it if you DuckDuckGo Year in Ethereum 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. So we still have a few minutes if people have questions about Year in Ethereum 2021, 22, 2030, 2050. So please, I don't know if you have a microphone up here, but I think.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me right back.
Yeah. May I request people to walk up here? It might be easier. So please ask your question. And we're also, for those of you who are watching the live stream, we are sourcing questions from Twitter. The hashtag has been announced. So just post your questions there. And we have, all of us are looking out on Twitter, and we'll see if we can take those in as well.
If this is a hard security question, the answer is I don't know.
All right. So thank you, first of all, for the lovely presentation. So I guess my question is, you obviously don't seem super worried about the competition to Ethereum, at least at the current state, but is there any particular holdout or any specific project you think does pose like an interesting challenge for Ethereum? Even if you still see Ethereum as like the long-term winner, is there anything that's like maybe giving Ethereum a good value prop to kind of compare itself to?
When I think about Ethereum's challenges, I think about security. Easy to say when you're at the security conference. I think about client diversity. I think Ethereum has always tried to have client diversity and has always, frankly, kind of failed. You go back to the early days where we were going to have 3 clients, and then it didn't really happen, and it was sort of unexplained to the community at the time. I've now found out the story, but that's my cue, I think, to get off stage. Yeah, I don't know. I think if your question is more about like, are there other things that like competing chains? I do have some stake in other chains, and like I don't think I'm like I do think that there is a world in which some of these accrue some value, but I think that ultimately like Ethereum as a community has to execute, and if it does, I don't particularly worry about competition.
Anyone else has another question? I'll ask a quick follow-up, which is, do you think EVM chains are going to remain L1, or are a lot of these new L1 EVM chains going to remain separate, or might they get subsumed in a sort of like L2 style merge, or something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think over the years, I've privately told a lot of friends over the years, like if you fail as an app and you have a token, like because you did an ICO, then you just become a base chain because it's the easy way to cash out. I think that might change at some point where, running your own validators is expensive and it'll be easier to just hook in and be an L2 on Ethereum. I think, one thing that has to change is the narrative has to change where like, a lot of things have been, in my view, how to say this politely, ill pumped as a narrative when I think in the long term I think it makes more sense for many things to hook into Ethereum. Maybe not everything. I think there is a world for novel chains, but plenty of the things that are out there that frankly don't provide much innovation. I think it would make a lot of sense for them, and less inflation for their token holders or issuance. My economics professors would be upset if I didn't say.
Thank you.